This is Liam Hendricks, and you're watching Crosstown Crosstalk on the Barroom Network.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Every summer in Chicago, the sunshine spotlights the city's spectacular skyline. Its luxurious lakeshore, marvelous monuments, and the over 200 neighborhoods in the city. And it also brings to light two of the greatest sports franchises in the world. On the north side, it's the Cubs. On the south side, it's the White Sox. This is Crosstown Crosstalk.
Hello and welcome to another very exciting edition of Crosstown Crosstalk presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinny Parisi, and that's right, the mustache lives to fight another day. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they're playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. And speaking of mustaches, it's Dylan Seastay on the south side. But first and foremost, when it comes to mustaches, there's only one guy that I think of when it comes to prominent, outstanding mustaches. Of course, I'm talking about Nick Morosky, the Good Guys Talk Back podcast and the Locked On White Sox podcast. Nick, how we doing, my man?
Oh, Vinny, thank you for that intro. I'm doing great, buddy. Nice to be talking Sox with you.
100%. Man, I say it all the time, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You are one of my very favorite people on White Sox Twitter. Just everything about, the whole bit, it cracks me up. I'm interested. I think you're very knowledgeable. So honestly, it's a pleasure to have you, my man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's lifelong, man. I'm a third generation Sox fan, born into it, as a lot of Sox fans are. And it's just, I've been doing it for several years now. And it's just fun to meet other folks that are just as crazy as I am about the White Sox. So cheers, man. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. So when you live and die with the White Sox as much as we do, you get extremely angry at times. You get extremely happy at times. We kind of saw a bit of both over the last two games against the Cleveland Guardians. That game on Monday was just a complete debacle. We don't have to talk about that. What I'm going to ask you is, did their most recent win on Tuesday, following that debacle of a game, make you feel a little better about things? They are 7-1 in their last 8.
Yeah, it did, because, that happens. Monday night happens. It shouldn't happen too often. During that winning streak, we had outstanding performances from the bullpen, solid defense, and everything just came crumbling late in the game. Those types of losses can snowball. And that's what I was worried about. I know a lot of fans were worried. How is this team going to respond? And it's one of those situations where you're glad they played on Tuesday, because you can get back into the win column and get back into the positive vibes. There were some great quotes by, Giolito. I think Scott Merkin had it on MLB.com going into Tuesday's game. Giolito kind of just said, hey, we didn't even have to say anything to anybody. We got to the stadium. We got into the clubhouse. Everybody looked around and just said, hey, we just got to get back to what we've been doing. We've been playing good baseball in May, and they felt it as much as we did as fans. So I thought it was not a must win, but it was one of those types of victories that I think with the Yankees, looming, you had to have that.
So you mentioned Giolito. He went 7 strong, only gave up the 1 run. Of course, it was another bomb from Josh Naylor. That guy's quickly turning into a nailer of White Sox pitchers, but it's nice to have a guy who can go out there and throw 7 strong after a debacle of a loss like that. Do you still see Lucas Giolito as the ace of the staff?
I do, just because of, I guess, tenureship or the veteran presence. He has, I don't want to say he's seen it all, but compared to our staff, I'm not necessarily putting Keuchel in there, because maybe we'll get to him later, but I'm looking at Kopech, Cease, and Giolito. Obviously, Giolito's still coming back from the injury, but that was a great sign on Tuesday. Those are your silver linings, is the amount of pitches he threw, how deep he went into the game. He didn't let the Naylor home run snowball. Talk about, looking at games, just inning by inning. We've seen Giolito in the past where a big hit like that can turn into several hits and possibly even several runs. He limited at that. He got out of the inning. I look at what Giolito's doing and what Kopech, I think, is looking to, and Cease looking at Giolito's the guy they're trying to emulate. Now, Cease is doing some amazing things. And Kopech, oh my goodness, if we could keep this Kopech going throughout the summer, wow, we really have something here. But I think it's Giolito's the ace until somebody really knocks him off. And I think when Giolito is completely strong, which is going to be soon, he's the guy we're going to be continually talking about.
Yeah, and if Lance Lynn comes back and he starts to pitch the way he was last season, and Kopech and Cease keep it up, and if Giolito by the end of the year is considered your fourth best pitcher, that's something, or even your third best pitcher, depending on what Lynn does, I think you got yourself a solid rotation there. So you brought up Dylan Cease. He's on the mound tonight. We're all rocking the mustaches in support of our guy. Do you think that this game is probably the biggest start going into the start in his career? Because last year, a common criticism of him was that, yeah, he dominated against some of the poor teams in the American League. But then if he was playing against one of the top teams, he might have not looked quite the same. This is the definition of a top team they're playing against.
Yeah, he faced the Yankees twice last year, and it didn't go very well. But Dylan Cease is a completely different pitcher this year than he was last year and the year before that. And that's what you love to see is the maturation, the growth. Stone talks about it during the telecast. His presence, his confidence, his command, especially on that 12-6, breaking ball, he's getting that over for a strike early in the count. He's a different pitcher. So why not? Say to yourself, this game is huge for me as an individual. It's huge for the White Sox to put themselves up against, the Yankees, one of the best teams in baseball. But for Dylan Cease as a pitcher, why not? I know it's still early, but call this. You might not have to say it out loud to reporters or go on record or anything, but it's okay to internalize and say, you know what, this is a must win for me. I want to announce my presence. You want to get talked about nationally. You want to be in the Cy Young conversation. You got to beat teams like the Yankees.
He's already, if you look at the Vegas odds, he's already up there in terms of the Cy Young prices and stuff like that for the betting world. So people are seeing him, but I think a dominant start against the Yankees will really make people think like, oh, this guy's really good. And speaking of really good, you don't go about talking White Sox baseball without mentioning Michael Kopech at least a little bit. If these numbers were to keep up, obviously having an under 2 ERA is not necessarily going to keep up over the course of a career. But if he keeps up the stuff that he's been putting out there, this could be like a $200 million pitcher, maybe more. Like, I know that's crazy to think about because he's made 5 starts so far this season after 3 years of not making starts. But the sky's the limit for this guy. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, the sky is the limit, and we don't know what we have yet in Kopech, and that's crazy to talk about. He came over in the fall of 2016. Obviously, everybody knows the story. It got the rebuild going, and we've seen glimpses. He's had injuries. There's been other situations with the COVID year. Came out of the bullpen last year, absolutely electric, but he has always said he wanted to be a starter. He wanted to be in the starting rotation, not as a spot starter, but part of the White Sox rotation. And I think every fan, we're all like, okay, that's cool. That sounds good. In theory, that's a great idea. That is the plan. We want to see it. And now we've got a sample size. And I'm excited what he's going to give you on Sunday against the Yankees. I think he's still scheduled to start against the Yankees on Sunday. Yep. And I mean, what he did in his previous start, he's an emotional guy, and he was not getting some calls from the home plate umpire. And one of his last innings, that home plate umpire, I think it was Ramos, he missed a call. And Kopech's next pitch was an errant, it almost sailed over the catcher's head. And you could see, here's that Kopech, high energy, emotional. He might start coming unraveled, and he didn't. He settled down, got right back to focus, and struck out the hitter. And that it's maturation. And I think it's Kopech, talking to veterans like Giolito, seeing what other guys like Cease, who's been going through it for several years. They talk to each other. They have the data. You got to credit Katz, I'm sure, as well. But Kopech has unbelievable talent. We're just starting to see a little bit of what he potentially could be.
Yeah, that's just so exciting. The way you break that down, it makes me even more excited than I already am after thinking about it like in my own brain. So that's good stuff. And in that game on Monday, Gavin Sheets had a just horrid looking error when he dropped what you would think, as Hawk would say, would be a can of corn, and it would have ended the inning. Which that speaks to Michael because he came back and struck out the next hitter after Ethan Katz had a conversation with him there. So that was nice to see. But going back to Gavin, dropping that ball, and then it was like, okay, they really sent down Berger in favor of him. I know he's a lefty, and then he comes out and he hits a monster home run in that game, and then he hits another one in the game on Tuesday. Both of those home runs probably should have stood up as game winners. Obviously, we know what happened on Monday, but just two huge home runs. What do you think of Gavin and his potential with this team, especially being one of the true lefty hitters on this team, like a non-switch hitting lefty?
Yeah, the Sox for a long time have been always trying to find that power hitting left-handed hitter. And it usually tries to happen with a right fielder. They want a right fielder that's also a lefty power hitter. And it hasn't gone their way over the last several years. My issue with Gavin Sheets is not his talent. I think he can hit the ball. He's starting to figure out what pitchers are doing to him. He's having this type of this season that Vaughn maybe had a while ago of like, okay, I was drinking from the hot fire hose. I'm now studying and learning what these guys are doing. Now I have to adjust as a hitter. His power, you've seen it this past week. My issue is that, he is being pushed out there to the outfield in a situation that, is not his natural position. And that's the Sox organization. That's a whole nother thread of the conversation. Where he was supposed to play on Wednesday, if that game didn't get postponed, was first base. And you were going to have Engel in right field, which I love. His home run on Tuesday, he was hitting DH. Great. I love Sheets as a DH right now, or a spot first baseman. But to have him out in right field, and Stone was given excuses about, well, it was maybe the lights. And it might have been the lights, but you'd think a seasoned right fielder who maybe has played at that stadium for several opportunities or several years, several games, would have known that those are how the lights are going to be, and this is how I play it this early in the game. Hey, credit to Sheets for coming back and hitting that home run. Really happy for him because he was feeling horrible about himself. But is he put in a situation to succeed? I don't think so when he's out there in right field, but I am excited for that lefty power bat.
I agree. Andrew Vaughn looked okay playing left field. There were times where he didn't, and I think we overrated him in left field just a tad last year. And I'm not taking anything away from him. When Eloy went down last year and he stepped in, he's a baseball player. He's a team guy. I respect the crap out of him, and I respect Sheets for playing right. But are you kind of on the train? It seems like you are. It's probably not a good idea to have first baseman playing the outfield if you can avoid it. It makes us appreciate Jimenez at least a little more too, because at least he'll catch the routine fly ball.
Yeah, the Sox are a team that will sacrifice defense for offense. And they might not come out and say it, but they're going to continue to have Eloy out there in left field because of his bat, not because of his glove. Tim Anderson is in the lineup for a lot of different reasons and on this team and for a lot of different reasons. And he's not winning any gold gloves at shortstop. It's because of his bat and everything else that he can do. Same thing with throwing guys like Sheets and Vaughn out in the outfield. We need their bat in the lineup. The Sox organization is prioritizing the offense. They did not go out and, improve defensively aside from McGuire at the last second heading into the season. Vaughn, though, he really has a lot of versatility. I was pleasantly surprised with what he was able to do in the outfield last year. I don't think that is the long-term solution, though, but he just seemed like he was more comfortable than Sheets right now in his small sample size out there in left field or in right field.
Tim Anderson, you brought up not winning any gold gloves anytime soon. I completely agree with that, but he only had 10 errors last year. He's got 9 right now, and we're halfway through May. So I'm curious if you think that something's just weird with him right now defensively, or if, Certain positioning has been the issue that has led to errors. Obviously, the numbers suggest, based on last year, that it's going to come down and he's going to look a little bit more like the Tim Anderson that played. He certainly wasn't exceptional at shortstop last year. I didn't look at him and go, wow, at any point, but he's certainly better than what he's been, I think.
Yeah, after that Houston series and a lot of things that happened in 2021, I think that the organization looked at how they were positioning defensively and they were trying to do maybe some different things, give some different looks to opponents. And perhaps Tim Anderson is being asked to do things that he wasn't asked to do in previous seasons. And La Russa has used the excuse several times that the reason why, Anderson may be making some of these errors is because he's so athletic. He's getting to baseballs that other players would not be able to get to. He's rushed, and then there's, an errant throw or what have you. I think it's okay as a fan or somebody that studies this team to simply say Tim Anderson is not a plus defender, and he might not get better this season to become a plus defender where we're lying and saying, thank goodness Tim Anderson is at short. Oh my, wow. What have we done without him? I think it's okay to say that. Will this continue? I don't think this is going to continue. I think, with the positioning and everything, what they're asking him to do, he'll catch up. We need him. If you look at stretches where Tim Anderson has been out of the lineup and out, of the game, and the Sox go the way Tim Anderson goes. So when Tim Anderson is, making some errors and things aren't going great for him, you see then, well, I guess that's how the Sox go sometimes too. Now, when he had those miscues in Monday's game, he also, had 3 hits and some critical RBIs. So we need his bat, we need his speed, we need his energy. But I'm okay saying, you know what? I mean, he's just probably not going to just become this slick, amazing, fielding shortstop. It's okay. But some of the basic stuff, some of these throws to Abreu, that stuff, he's been in the league since 2016. That stuff needs to get cleaned up.
I could not agree more. I think he sets the tone at the top of the lineup, and you need him. You need him at the top. And like I said, like you said, when you have guys like Abreu and Robert, all these guys coming up after him in the starting lineup, you want that guy on base. He had 3 hits, like you said, and he produced some RBIs, which is nice. You like to see that from him. But even if he's just the guy scoring runs, I think he's so valuable to this team. And I want to touch on the starting rotation just a little bit more. Giolito, Cease, Kopech. Who am I missing that I didn't name? Oh, Lynn, when Lynn comes back. Well, that leaves a 5th spot. And Keuchel hasn't really lived up to coming back this year and having a fresh start and all that. Vince Velasquez has been pretty good over the last few games, but it's not like we all have this beaming confidence in him that it's just going to continue all season long. In the minors, Johnny Cueto went 5.1 last night, gave up 2 runs on 3 hits, 6 strikeouts. I think it was 1 walk. He's looked pretty good, but we know the difference between major league hitting and minor league hitting. Does he get a shot if you were in charge?
Well, I am more excited to see what Cueto can do than what I think I'm going to get from Keuchel, if that makes sense. Like, I kind of know what I'm going to get from Keuchel. Yes, the Boston outing was impressive, but it was against the Red Sox. Okay. What you're going to see from Keuchel on Saturday against the Yankees, I'm scared for, but if he turns in a pretty good performance, well, then I think you have to continue to look at Keuchel. And I say that mainly because he's a left-handed pitcher, and I like to have a little bit of balance. We have none right now in our starting pitching, but to have a lefty in there is helpful. If you eliminate him, then you're throwing all righties at this point. I don't know if that matters or not. For me, I think I like to vary up the looks a little bit, but if your lefty can't get anybody out, you might as well just go with all righties. I really like what I'm seeing from Velasquez. I mean, this is a guy that's improved, and we'll see him on Friday night against the Yankees. He's mixed up his pitches. He has better command. Again, it was only 2 starts, but one of those was against the Angels, and they were coming in white hot against our Sox. I don't know what. I'm willing to give Cueto a shot, of course, and I think a decision has to be made on him relatively soon. Keuchel reminds me a lot of John Danks. If you remember that end of the John Danks era in 2016, he started 0-4. It was the last year of his contract, like we're experiencing kind of with Keuchel, and he just didn't have it. He didn't have it anymore. And I'm not saying Keuchel doesn't have it, but what he throws, 80s, high 80s, nipping at the corners, if he misses, that's batting practice stuff. He doesn't have wipeout stuff. And this is the type of league where it is a swing and miss league. Your starting pitchers, you need to get those whiffs, and Keuchel doesn't have that. So, I don't know. At this point, honestly, if you ask me, it's like give Velasquez that spot.
Yeah, Velasquez, he's really impressed me over the last couple of weeks. And Keuchel, you brought up John Danks. That scares me because the last time that happened, and then they thought they had a chance to win that year, and they went out and traded for James Shields, and we know how much of a disaster that was. I don't think Fernando Tatis Jr. is in the White Sox minor league system right now, so not necessarily worried that they're going to trade a guy of that caliber. But at the same time, we didn't know what that guy would become back then. So hopefully they don't overreact when it comes to this, and they just use Velasquez, and maybe if a good trade comes along by the trade deadline, that could work. Do you think we kind of overrated Keuchel's start against Boston, though? Because he was starting to come unraveled in that 6th inning there. And he did give up 8 hits. You give up 8 hits a lot of the time, and you only yield 2 runs. Sometimes that's a sign that maybe you got a little lucky with some defensive plays and whatnot. The White Sox aren't the best defensive team either, which I think helps Keuchel struggles because he needs contact in order to create outs. I don't know. I think we overrated it just a tad.
Yeah, he's a ground ball pitcher. And, when we're struggling fielding the ball and throwing the ball, to have him throw more pitches and give the opposition more outs. And you could see the anguish on his face when an error is made behind him. It happened in Cleveland. Boy, he wears his emotions on his face, and he's said it in certain comments. He's not happy with how the defense has been playing behind him. He knows that he, as a pitcher, is going to thrive only when he gets, lockdown defense. Again, Boston isn't a great team. It's a tough team to play. They've always played us really well. Boston at Fenway is a difficult spot to be at. So, give Keuchel credit for being able to, limit the damage. But again, that start didn't sell me. I didn't all of a sudden say, well, Keuchel's back. I'm back on the Keuchel train. You got to kind of understand the situation.
Luis Robert didn't get off to the best start that we've ever seen him get off to. Then he had the little injury there. He was out for about a series. But then since coming back, he's looked like the Luis Robert that we know he can be. I still think there are more home runs in that tank. I like the power is just untapped. But outside of that, he's been brilliant. Do you think he could be in the MVP conversation? If not this year, next year, the year after? We talked about Anderson driving the bus. I think that guy's right there.
Oh, definitely. Let's have this conversation with the understanding that he stays healthy. And if he does, that means he can healthfully like track down balls in the outfield, in the alleyway, in the gap, and make the plays that we know he can make. That means if he's healthy, he can, be a force on the base paths, which before his injury, he was leading the league. It was early, but he was leading the league in stolen bases. And if he's healthy, his swing's going to be right. He's not missing games, and, he's going to be able to flex the power. And once you start seeing him hitting opposite field, as Frank Thomas did early in his career, when you started to see Frank Thomas go opposite field, you knew, watch out. Now what are you going to do with this guy? Because you pitch him away, he's going to take the ball to right field. You pitch him middle in, and he's going to go down the line. The ball he hit in Fenway, I believe it was the Friday night Apple TV game, he golfed that thing out. That wasn't even really like in his typical wheelhouse. He adjusted quickly with his hands, and that's what's dangerous is the quick in at bat adjustments that he makes, whether it be feet or hands. He is going to school. He is a smart dude surrounded by a lot of veterans and smart dudes that want to see him succeed. And the, advancements that he has made are you're seeing it with the results. It's just, man, we got to have him stay on the field. My worry, Vinny, is that, the organization is going to tap him on the shoulder and say, we need your bat. We need your bat. We also need your glove, but maybe we're going to have to limit these stolen base opportunities just because you don't want to see him getting injured.
Yeah, and he saved the game against the Cubs by running into their brick wall in center field. And there were men on base. The Cubs probably would have taken the lead, and you never know what happens from there. They can't allow this guy to get hurt. I agree. Maybe make the catch. Try your best not to run in the wall. I know it's so much easier said than done, but I just think the world of this guy. And when I think of running into walls, I think of Eloy Jimenez. Hector Gomez tweeted yesterday that he'll be back in 2 weeks after the initial diagnosis of it being a 6 to 8 week injury, returning from the surgery there. Do you buy it? Hector Gomez, he's been right, he's been wrong. He confirmed that the White Sox were in on Nelson Cruz last offseason, and then that obviously never ended up happening. But he did nail Eloy's contract extension before ever playing an MLB game, so that he got that right. He obviously has some kind of connection to him, but sometimes, I don't know, sometimes he's hard to trust.
Yeah, I don't buy it. Not any disrespect to him as a journalist or, anything. It's just, why would the Sox do that? Why would the Sox rush Jimenez right now? It's not even, it's mid-May just about. There's plenty of baseball left. Why try to get him back so quickly? And maybe it's 4 weeks. I don't think it's 2 weeks, but if they're going to continue to have him out in left field and you want him to be able to do everything baseball related, then I think you're going to have to make sure he can do it all comfortably. I mean, they've been very cautious with guys like Robert and with Moncada. Look what they're doing with Vaughn. He's getting a rehab stint, for his hand. I just don't see why you would, unless there's information that we don't know about, unless it wasn't as bad as it was, allegedly reported. I love the reports of, Jimenez taking batting practice and what Jimenez has said. He not only his abilities, okay, on the baseball field, but just his personality, Vinny. That's what I was so upset about when we were going to lose him, because that's what we lost last year, is that energy. That presence when he sprints out to left field. Absolutely. You've been to games when, he sprints out to left field at the beginning of the game and he's bowing to the folks in the left field bleachers, bowing to the fans down the left field line. Like he loves it. And the fans love him. And that's what you're missing out. So you pump the brakes, just make sure we're getting him back at 100%.
That's the answer I was hoping to hear you say. Because as much as I love this guy and I can't wait till he comes back, I'm going to be, flashing my Eloy pom-poms the second he steps back on the field. He's just such a good guy. And inserting that power into the middle of this lineup, Moncada's back, which I'll get your thoughts on him in a second. He just provides so much to this team. And I love it so much. He makes it, they're like such a cool team to me. Like if I was from, I don't know, Kansas, some state that I had to pick a baseball team, they're just fun. They enjoy themselves, and Eloy is a big part of that. So, Yoan Moncada, he returned, and he had a really nice play on the first pitch of the game that he returned in, but then he booted the ball in the 9th inning, and that is one of the reasons the Sox blew that game. A little bit of rust at the major league level, maybe. Got his first hit, though. The on base is always nice. He was 3rd in the MLB in that last year. A lot of people online angry that he doesn't hit a lot of home runs. And, the power, they still need to see a little more of that from him. But what's your take on him and what he brings to this team? Because it's probably a very polarizing thing.
Yeah, I can't remember another player that has had so much pressure on him since joining the organization. When he came over to the White Sox with Michael Kopech for Chris Sale, essentially, and we got the glimpse of Moncada first. The weight of the world was on his shoulders. He was going to be the savior. He was the ticket to, winning, to postseason, to the World Series. And because he's not living up to this world that maybe we as fans built in our mind, and hey, ESPN was all over it. There's other publications that were, watch out, this guy's the number one prospect in all of the world. But he hasn't been doing that. And there's been some health issues, but he doesn't have to be the driving power force. Okay. The guy we were just talking about, Luis Robert, is going to be your guy. Jimenez, those guys can be 30-30, 40-40 maybe, when they're healthy. So Moncada, and Ozzie Guillen was talking about it in the pregame a couple games ago. Moncada just, he's just let him be him. Don't try to put the weight of the world on his shoulders. Let him, fit into that lineup, get back. He'll have his doubles. The power swing will come back. A little concerned about the error he made, sure. But if you look at last year, that sample size, he should have been in the Gold Glove conversation. I love his glove at third base, and we should be lucky as a fan base to have him there at third base. His offense will come along, but it's the expectations that we put on Yoan Moncada. I don't know if they're fair. I don't know, Vinny. You tell me if you think that, he should be doing some of the things that we think he should be doing, power numbers. I don't know.
I mean, he had 25 bombs in 2019, and that was probably his career year. The average was high. The on-base percentage was great. He even received he was on a couple people's MVP ballots. So, he hasn't been that since. I know he blamed COVID in 2020. I thought last year he was much better than people give him credit for. I mean, he was a 4.5 WAR player in a year that people were just taking a crap all over the guy. And like you said, would you like to see a couple more home runs? Sure. But he doesn't need to be that guy anymore. If he's the 7th best power hitter on this team, you got a really good power lineup. I mean, Anderson has the potential to hit more home runs than him. I'd like to see Moncada probably have more home runs than Anderson, but if Anderson ended up with more, I'd be 0% surprised. Robert, Abreu, Jimenez, Grandal, Vaughn, even Sheets, all these guys could end up with better overall home run numbers. But like you said, expectations have been everything. I don't need him to be the best player on this team. I need him to be one of the great players on this team. And I think that's what, for the most part, we've gotten so far.
Yeah, and stay healthy. That's obviously the thing everybody's talking about with the Sox for the last few years. Is just what would be great is just to get a couple full seasons of Moncada where there isn't disruptions of anything. And, he gets a lot of flack for, the grimaces that he gives after legging out a double or, and I don't also think fans want more emotion sometimes for him. They want him to be the high mom Eloy or Anderson. Well, that's not him. He wants to, I think, stay behind the scenes, let his performance speak for itself. We just want to see the performance regularly.
Yeah, and the same people that get mad at him for grimacing after running out a ground ball are not appreciating his body language because it's not Tim Anderson or Eloy, are the same people that get mad at him for spending his offseason making a music video. It's the same group of people. They're just hypocritical. So I love Moncada. I'm happy to have him back. It was almost interesting. He kind of seemed to help his stock a little bit by being hurt because we went into this year thinking he would be the 6th guy. And he comes back, and it's clear that the 2 spot is perfect for him because Luis Robert loves batting in the 4 spot, and we initially had him in the 2 spot. So a lot of criticism has come of TLR, of his lineups and his management. What do you think of the lineup? How would you come up with it?
I would say, I used to get really hot and bothered by some of his lineups. And to me, sometimes it's more about his bullpen usage and sticking with guys maybe a little too long. I think like a lot of managers, he gets hung up on matchups, lefty, righty, lefty kind of thing. One of the most confusing things is the way he managed the lineups in Cleveland, I think, with Garcia. Putting Garcia in the 3 spot and then in the 2 spot, I didn't get that. It almost felt like to me it was a middle finger to the fans and to the critics. Like, I don't care what you say. I've been around this game long enough. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So there. And I'm sure that's not the reason, but that was not a good look. I mean, hey, we could talk about Garcia for a long time, and fans either love him or hate him. There's a lot of there's a lot of folks that are in love with Garcia, and he provides a lot of value to this White Sox team. You need guys like that if you're going to win a championship. But I don't want to see Garcia in the 3 spot or even the 2 spot.
Yeah, it sounds like you appreciate Garcia for what he is, though. A bench guy, maybe a 9 hitter from time to time. I mean, he is Leary legend after all, but outside of Moncada, he might be the most polarizing player on the team.
Yeah, he is a guy that if you can fit in at 8 or 9, I think the issue with him is, again, like, it's not his fault that the White Sox didn't go out and pay some premium money for premium talent at second base. Okay, they tried to capture something with Harrison, and hey, Harrison, I don't think is going to light the world on fire offensively, or defensively. If he can stay healthy, he's probably an upgrade at second base for maybe what we were dealing with Hernandez at the end of the season last year. But again, that's not the solution that a lot of fans wanted. Okay, that's not the premium second baseman, maybe the future second baseman. So the fact that you see Lurie playing second base quite a bit in a lot of different positions because we haven't been able to stay healthy, it's shaking your fist like, here we go, another Garcia day. Well, what else are you going to do with all these injuries? It just so happens that Lurie is the guy that has to fill some of those spots, like with Mendick. The start that Lurie, had at the beginning of the year was really unfortunate. When Lurie gets in situations when he's up against 1-2 pitchers for another team in critical spots in a game, he often looks overmatched, but that's just, how it goes sometimes. When you play a lot like he had to, because of injuries, you will get overexposed. It happened to him last year, but he provides value, of course, because he's so versatile. It's just the everyday stuff and where he was penciled in and hitting by La Russa. I had some problems with that.
Sure. Is Liam Hendricks, are you worried about him? Is he as bad as he's been?
The only thing I get worried about is when I read stuff about him tipping his pitches, and I don't know what truth to put in that, but it seems like it might have been an issue last year. It seemed maybe it popped up a few times this year. If he's not learning from that, or he's not able to kind of disguise it or shake it, that could be that's a serious problem. I think his fastball, when he goes after guys, so this is how I view it as a fan sometimes, is like he was on a streak during that winning streak. He looked untouchable. And in Monday night's game, it seemed like he had this invincibility, and he just went after Naylor and was like, I'm going to beat you with a straight fastball, whether you like it or not. And Naylor said, no, you're not. I can catch up to that. That's when I think sometimes Liam runs into issues. He can sometimes struggle getting his breaking ball where he wants to get it, but when he's on, he's untouchable. Who else would you want in that situation? It's when he gets beat with the home run, and it's often with a straight fastball where it's like you got to spot that better or disguise it because these guys know what's coming.
And the two big bombs that Liam gave up that people give him crap for, one was to Byron Buxton, who hits baseballs to Pluto off of everybody, and one was to Josh Naylor, who has 3 home runs in his last 8 at-bats against the White Sox. So, I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. I'm curious, though. Liam, he leads what is usually a really nice bullpen. What did they go, 10 straight innings without yielding a run?
Yeah.
And, finally they came unraveled at the end of that game. Do you like the bullpen as a whole? Do Keuchel, Velasquez, when someone comes up, Lance Lynn comes back, push somebody out? What's your overall thoughts on the bullpen? Because when they're on, they've been on so far this season.
Yeah, I really unfortunate to see Lopez leave the game recently with some back issues. I hopefully everything's okay with him because I actually value him a lot. As a long relief guy, I've enjoyed what he's done recently. It seems like he's figured some things out. He had some electric outings during that little winning streak. Seeing Joe Kelly in a White Sox uniform on Monday, that was one inning of work, but boy, was that fun to watch. His fastball has got a ton of movement. It is zipping all over the place. And I love that he had a comebacker and he just sprinted to first base and he took care of business on his own. Like he's just got that energy and personality. I would say every year, but the last couple of years, coming into the season, there's a lot of like the pen is mightier conversation. Like we've got an all-world bullpen. This bullpen is the Harlem Globetrotters of bullpens, and bullpen arms are tough, man. It's a short shelf life for arms. You could have a couple great years and then all of a sudden you're gassed and you're yesterday's news. I hope Aaron Bummer can return to form. He worries me. But guys like Kendall Graveman, what Foster has been doing lately. Obviously, the addition of Kelly. I'm not really worried with Hendricks. I feel like Hendricks, you can't worry too much about because of his resume. And I know that slightly goes against what I just said with a short shelf life, but I don't think that shelf life is over yet or expired for Hendricks. Not at all. I think he's still got a ton left in the tank. He's just too smart of a baseball player with all the codified stuff he does. The bullpen is going to deal with issues basically by us as fans, that we hold it to a certain level that it just might not be achievable. And what you saw during that winning streak, I think that's going to happen more times than not. But you're going to have blown games. That's going to happen. You're going to have guys that just, they don't have their stuff. It sounds like the Sox are trying to be pretty smart with workload management, especially with Graveman, because they want to get these guys to be, electric towards the end of the season. So I like that the Sox are being smart. So you're going to see interesting matchups sometimes with maybe like Souza coming in to close a game, because Sox are trying to be really careful with how they're using pitchers. But I like the depth that they have. It seems like La Russa is happy with the depth that they have, and La Russa is Mr. Bullpen. I mean, that's what he loves, is being able to, doctor up a bullpen and have options.
What's your overall assessment of Tony La Russa up to this point?
I don't feel like we're winning because of Tony La Russa, and I don't necessarily feel like, he's hampering this team as much as people think he is. There's been some gaffes here and there for sure. I mean, it happens with all managers. I was more on is this the guy that we really want long term that's going to grow with some of these players? When he came in the fall of 2020, and you've got these young guys, not that I didn't think he can relate to these young guys, but would he be around, 3-4 years when this team is really starting to flourish in their championship window? Or are we going to have to start the process all over again and have a new manager that gets acclimated with the team? Because I think it was a 3-year deal. So this is year 2 of the 3-year deal. I thought it was a surprising move. I liked how he managed things last year with all of the injuries. Tough to say, would have another manager been able to do that? I probably, another experienced manager, would be able to see the talent on the team and been able to smartly place guys in different positions. But you got to give La Russa credit, I think, for being able to keep the team above water, wait for our horses and everybody to get back. But, the postseason, Vinny, I mean, he just was outmanaged. I mean, the team was outplayed and he was outmanaged by the Astros. So I think he's hopefully learned from that. I think the Sox organization has made some changes, but, they didn't spend the money. I think that a lot of fans want them to spend in the correct way, and he's dealing with what he has. So we'll see when some of these guys come back. It's like, how can you go wrong though with a team that is healthy and like the lineup that you rattled off recently, when you've got healthy Anderson, Moncada, Abreu, Robert, Vaughn, Jimenez, and then, if Sheets is hitting, how do you, and Grandal, like, how do you kind of go wrong? It's the management of, I think, off days, pinch hitting opportunities, that's where he gets put under the microscope.
Sure, and I'm excited for lineup continuity too. I think that'll help Tony La Russa
a
lot. Really quick before I let you get out of here, the White Sox, as I mentioned before, 7-1 in their last 8. Played some really good ball over that stretch. Outside of the 9th inning of 2 games ago, it's been mostly really good. Held leads, took nice at bats. You need that when you have the best team record-wise in Major League Baseball coming to town in the New York Yankees. A lot of people got on the White Sox last year for having a really good record against the bad AL Central division and a not so great record against the good teams. But really, when you go back and look at their record against the good teams, 3-3 against the Rays, 3-4 against the Astros, around 500 against most of these good teams, 3-3 against Boston, who was 2 wins away from the World Series last year. I know they sucked this year, but last year they were pretty good. Mostly 500-ish records against those good teams, which is what you need. But that narrative started because they were 1-5 against the New York Yankees. And the one win was, of course, the Field of Dreams game. what are you expecting from this series? Are you as scared of Aaron Judge as I am? You think Mike Stanton is going to do some damage? I know Anthony Rizzo's on fire. It's just a tough team to play against right now.
Yeah, it's nice that it's happening, on the South side. We're going to see the Yankees in New York later this month. So you got 7 games with the Yankees in a short period of time. I think as an organization, you want to put yourself up against the best right now. It's still a little early. And yes, we don't have guys like Vaughn, Lynn, or Jimenez. But I think with the guys that the Sox are throwing, starting things off with Cease, I love that. I could see a split. I think if you get swept, if you lose 3, it's going to be pretty dejecting. It really is, because I think that despite all the firepower that the Yankees are going to throw at you offensively, White Sox starting pitching has been damn good recently. I mean, it's been holding things together like it had last year in 2021. And again, if you want to try to put yourself up against, how do I look against the rest of the American League? Go with the best. And this is a good time to do it because Cease is pitching well and Kopech is pitching well. You're going to have warm weather, which everybody, always attributes to, the ball's going to be flying out, should be a lot of offense. That means that there's probably going to be a lot of offense for New York as well. Is your season over if you lose 3 or get swept? Of course not. But I think you have got to play better against good teams to get that confidence going. Because there's going to be some tough months coming up, and we're still trailing the Twins, so you want to get things back, going in the right direction. With Kansas City coming up next week for a bunch of games, you split with New York, take 3 out of 4. That is going to be an awesome feeling. You forget all about that brutal Monday loss quickly.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. You play the Yankees. They're going to throw Cole in one of the 4 games. I want to say it's tomorrow. And you'd like to see this lineup succeed against a pitcher like that. I mean, he's one of the very best. You're going to see pitchers like that in the postseason. If you want to win the World Series, you're going to have to face a Scherzer or a DeGrom maybe in a 7-game series. Or if it's the Dodgers, a Buehler, Urias, Kershaw. You're going to have to beat these types of guys. And hit for average, hit for power, whatever it may be. The weather's not going to be warm in Chicago in the World Series if they were to make it over the next 3 or 4 years, I would say. So I like the premise of taking 2 out of 4 from the Yankees. Keuchel and Cease, or Kopech and Cease, need to be at their best. But is there a specific thing you're looking forward to most with the White Sox in terms of their roster against the Yankees here?
Specifically, I am looking at what Dylan Cease and Kopech can do. It's one thing to kind of mow down some of the teams that they've faced so far in this early season with their games started, but this is a different story. Cease saw this club last year, as we mentioned, and so if he can study that and flip the script, that's a good sign. There were some nail biters that we lost last year against the Yankees, 1-run games in those losses, hitting with runners in scoring position. I mean, they manufactured some runs during that winning streak that the Sox had that it was great to see. This team is not at all yet surviving by the home run. They're getting it when they can. I'm hoping, here's another hope, is just to get on base, get that on base percentage up. Work counts, make Yankees pitching work for it, and clean yourself up defensively. But it really comes down for me, the pitching, namely Cease and Kopech.
Nick, I can't thank you enough for coming on our show today. It's been my absolute pleasure talking White Sox baseball with you. I could go for another 2 hours, honestly, because it's just been so much fun. I enjoy it a lot. Do you want to promote any of your stuff for the fans watching at home if you want to, before you head out of here?
Absolutely. Vinny, thank you so much. This was a treat. And you're right, man. We could go for hours here talking White Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. And I've got a couple very fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcasts. Do a weekly podcast with my dear good friend Pat Hester. Good Guys Talk Back. It's a weekly podcast. You can find it everywhere. And daily podcast, Locked On White Sox. You can find us on Twitter as well, Locked On Sox. Both those podcasts everywhere you find your podcasts.
Absolutely. That's so great. Everybody make sure you're following Nick. Once again, it's at Nick_GGTB. Listen to all his shows. Follow him on Twitter. I'm telling you guys. Just telling you. This is one of the greats on White Sox Twitter. Top 3 White Sox personality on Twitter. I'm number 1, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. Nick, thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Vinny. Appreciate it, man.
Of course. And everybody, we would like to send you to a quick commercial break.
Zim, Joe, Vinny, and Gonzo. Join these White Sox fanatics every Monday night for the South Burbs Hitmen. You're going to be treated to great guests, top analysis, smart debates. South Burbs Hitmen with Zim, Joe, Vinny, and Gonzo. Only on the Barroom Network.
Thank you very much to Nick for coming on our show. That was an absolute pleasure. I love talking baseball with him. I've been on his podcast before. It's just a great conversation always. Very candid, very thoughtful. You know, sometimes he speaks so well that even I get flustered talking to him because he's just so good at this stuff. So I appreciate him very, very much. Make sure you check out all of his stuff. Now, we covered the White Sox a lot in this episode. So, you know, I know it's an all Chicago plus MLB podcast, so we'll move on a little bit here. The White Sox, obviously, they'll have the Yankees, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And you could catch all the recap on the Sox again on Monday night when we do South Burbs Hitman. But last night I saw something that happened on the West Coast that really kind of caught my attention a little bit. The Chicago Cubs went to San Diego. The San Diego Padres, one of the very best teams in the National League, and took 2 out of 3 from them. And they took this third game in comeback fashion, and it was rather impressive. You know, they got good pitching. The hitting was timely. There was a warning track, Frank Schwindel bomb or bomb to the warning track, I guess you could say, that kept them from sweeping the Padres. If that ball goes another 5 or 6 feet, they sweep the Padres. And that's a very good team that could find themselves in the World Series by the end of the year. So the only thing that was interesting, I saw a stat, they were 4-14 in between their 2 series wins. They took the first series of the season against the Milwaukee Brewers, and then they took this series against the San Diego Padres, and those are their only 2 series wins of the season, but they're hoping that they could keep it up going forward. And one thing I wanted to talk about really quick, there was a lot of conversation this week. I saw a friend of the program, Jesse Rogers, had an article on it. Yes, a W, Miss Caitlin. I know you're very happy about the Cubs taking a W, 2 out of 3 from the San Diego Padres. Saya Suzuki, he was off to a really good start to start his MLB career. Rookie of the week, player of the week, all these accolades that he was getting from his first couple games in the MLB. And it was quite impressive. And I think his mechanics are flawless. I love when he's in the batter's box. He's patiently aggressive. I know that kind of sounds weird. How can you be patient and aggressive? Saya Suzuki is. When the balls are not near the zone, he watches them go by. When they're in the zone, he's all over them. He very rarely takes a strike, and he very rarely swings at a ball. And that's what I mean by he's patiently aggressive. He's fun to watch, but he struggled a little bit there for a while. You started to figure like, okay, there's some tape on him now against Major League pitching. How do we attack him? So now it's time for him to adjust back. And I ultimately think he's going to. He's a great player, and I think he's going to be one of the forces in the Cubs lineup for a long time. One thing that intrigues me about their roster in general right now is Mr. Wilson Contreras. I think most Cubs people are starting to assume that he will not be on the team by August 1st. I don't know. I have no idea on that. Jesse Rogers thinks he's absolutely not going to be. And I know I talk about Jesse Rogers a lot when talking Cubs. I'm a fan of his work. Okay, he was on this podcast. He was very candid about his opinions on the Cubs, and he thinks Wilson Contreras is gone. And I can't say I blame him for thinking that. They haven't extended him up to this point, and all the history, Javier Baez, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, it all suggests that when the Cubs don't give guys contracts by the start of the season in their final deal, they trade them. And they would get pretty nice stuff for Wilson Contreras. I think it will depend on what part of the season that they actually make the move. But I don't know. Trading him would be probably tough on the fan base, because then like the meat and potatoes of the core that won the World Series in 2016 is gone. I know Kyle Hendricks is still there, and I know Jason Hayward is still there. You're not getting rid of Jason Hayward because nobody would take his contract. And I do think they could move Kyle Hendricks. I would move Kyle Hendricks before he becomes Dallas Keuchel, because in their prime, they're about the same pitcher, location, ground balls, need good defense behind me. Once the location isn't precise as it needs to be, he'll become like Dallas Keuchel, where he's just walking guys, or it becomes batting practice out there, like Nick mentioned earlier when talking about Keuchel. So I think the situations are very similar, but the Cubs have the series win to hold their head up high going into the weekend. It should be exciting times over there on the north side. The weather's heating up, and I know there's another series coming up. I want to say it's 2 weeks from now when the Cubs will visit Guaranteed Rate Field. So that's going to be pretty fun times for the city of Chicago, especially since the one at Wrigley. Yeah, the White Sox won 2 out of the 2 games, both games. That was nice, but it was also like not very fun to be in attendance. So hopefully these games at Guaranteed Rate Field are a little bit different weather-wise. Across Major League Baseball, we saw some outstanding stuff. One of my favorite teams to watch right now, I've been tuning in a little bit lately, has been the Los Angeles Angels. They had a no-hitter. Reed Detmers was on the mound, rookie, no-hitter, first of his career. It was an outstanding game. It had literally everything in it that you could possibly want to see. Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout went back-to-back in the game. I believe it was the first time since 2019 that the two had gone back-to-back. Obviously, Shohei wasn't Shohei in 2020. He had the Tommy John. He wasn't quite the hitter that he was, and he certainly wasn't pitching. And then in 2021, when Shohei won the MVP, Trout missed most of the season. Now they're both healthy. The Angels are looking good. Got Detmers throwing no-hitters. Shohei, I think in this game that they went back-to-back, he also had his first career grand slam, which was very cool to see. And then Anthony Rendon, they were winning so badly, 10-0, that he went up into the batter's box against Brett Phillips, who's also a position player pitching. He bat lefty and hit a home run. It was unbelievable. If you're not watching this Angels team right now and you like baseball, I don't know what's wrong with you. And they're in first place. The 2 LA teams doing really good. Obviously, the Dodgers are interesting. The 2 New York teams are in first place as well. The Mets and the Yankees both looking really good. Obviously, the Yankees are in town this weekend to take on the Chicago White Sox. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of anything else going on around baseball. Man, are the Red Sox bad? Wow, are they bad? What is wrong with the Boston Red Sox? I mean, they just stink. They're pitching. They blow games late. Games they look like they should win, they lose. They had that nice win against the Atlanta Braves, who, speaking of the Braves, are the Braves trying to do what they did last year? Just look incredibly average for the first couple games of the season and then really figure it out and turn it on in June, July, August, ultimately lead to them winning the World Series? I think it's possible. Maybe not the World Series, but if the Yankees make a run towards the wild card, I don't think they're going to catch the Mets. They didn't have the Mets playing like they are now last year. All they're going to do is get Jacob deGrom back at some point. So, the NL East is going to be an interesting animal. As far as American League Baseball, Detroit Tigers, they're bad too. They only have like 9 wins. And I thought they would come in second place in the AL Central. I thought that would be the team that challenges the White Sox the most. I am not sure that they're going to be able to come back and be that level of team once again. I'm seeing in the chat that Thomas Gage is here. I didn't watch the Hawkeye season finale yesterday. I was watching sports. I know you're a Marvel hater. Sucks to be you. So that's our show. It was a really good guest, Nick Morosky, this week. I love talking to that guy. He's just so good at his baseball analysis, and the White Sox are getting ready for a big run here. I'm excited for what's going on in Major League Baseball. The races are really starting to heat up. The weather's starting to heat up. It's going to be a good time at the ballpark all summer long. So I'm excited to share it with everybody. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Crosstown Crosstalk. Make sure you're following Nick Morosky on Twitter. It's at Nick_GGTB. And then, of course, I'm at Vinny Parisi on Twitter, at Vinny Parisi. Skylar in the chat saying, great show, Vinny. Thank you very much for listening to you. Skylar, it's always nice to have you in the chat. I promise that a Cubs episode, every episode is for all MLB, but a Cubs-centered episode is coming at you soon. I haven't had one of those in a while, so I'm going to start reaching out to some folks and get that going soon for you guys. So everybody, thank you for listening. Make sure you always watch baseball. Make sure you always watch the Barroom Network. I'm telling you guys, I know Thomas Gage will be very happy to hear about the fact that our nerdy science fiction show last night was just outstanding. I love listening to those guys talk about Marvel and DC and all the great stuff that's out there that closed-minded people aren't going to appreciate. It sucks for you. Of course, football season's underway. The schedule is going to officially be released tonight for the National Football League, but you can pretty much see every team's leaked schedule. I saw the Bears are opening their season against the San Francisco 49ers and the Buffalo Bills. My biggest takeaway is that the Week 16 game against the Buffalo Bills, they're just going to ruin my Christmas Eve. So, the best team in the NFL hosting the Bears on what should be a fun holiday, yeah, not going to happen. They're going to make me very, very sad, of course. So, and then, of course, I'll be back Monday night talking White Sox with the South Burbs Hitmen. Next week, Wednesday, very excited for a bar down. Hopefully, please, dear Jesus, let the Toronto Maple Leafs close out the series tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning, or on Saturday at home against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Either way, just win the series, Leafs, please. I want to keep the mustache. I want to keep Joey and Frankie bowing down to the true sports master in the family. You know who it is. It's me. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for everybody. I can't thank you enough for tuning in. This was a great episode. I'm very excited to share it with the world. Of course, we'll be back next week. As always, let's go Sox. Thank you for listening.